Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. Man, check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is the drop-off. More specifically, like that time when you either get dropped off from college or you just finally move out of your parents' house. I think it's interesting because we all have the idea of how it's going to look or how it's going to feel that time when we finally leave the nest. And more often than not, what you think's going to happen generally isn't what usually does happen. And I came to this idea or this conclusion for this particular episode because, as many of you know, here recently, my wife and I just dropped off our third son, Brandon, off at college. And listen, it was a very happy occasion. He got into every college that he applied to, but this college that he settled on, is a good fit for him. He visited the college a couple of times, had a ball, went to their homecoming, had a really good time, which I think kind of sealed the deal for him. They have his major, which is mass communications. He wants to be a film director, and he's already created a film already. He did that in high school, and it's interesting because when I look at his timeline, this time last year, we were, going through his senior year. He was playing football, that type of thing. And one calendar year later, we're dropping him off at college. And so in the process of that happening, I also got a chance to reflect back to my getting dropped off at college. For me, that was the fall of 1991. When I enrolled at South Carolina State University. One of the best decisions I made in my entire life was to attend South Carolina State University. But my, getting dropped off was, it was different because for me, that was the last time that I lived in my mom's house. I mean, of course I would come back, for holidays and stuff like that in the summer, but that time right before I left high school, after graduating from high school, that was the last time I would live with my mom and my brother. And so, I've said that to my kids as well. And now here's the thing. I didn't tell them that they had to leave, once they went off to college, but I did tell them like, look, hey, if you go out and you go to college and you don't want to come back and you find someplace else to live, that's cool. I mean, like, I can accept it. I said that then, not really knowing that these days would come and they would come a lot faster probably than I thought that they would. But here we are. So nonetheless, and what's interesting is like having dropped Brandon off at college, this wasn't our first go round. We have two older sons, Dion and Cameron. Dion just finished his master's degree, and Cameron just finished his undergraduate degree. And so they both have, well, Dion has transitioned out of the house. Cameron is back in the house, but only temporary until he goes to grad school. And so for Cameron, it may be a situation that when he finishes grad school, he may be out of the house totally. I don't know if they'll ever be out of my pockets. So, because your kids are never out of your pockets. If they ever get out of my pocket, listen, I'm going to ball out of control. But nonetheless, I said all that to say this, my process and their process obviously was different, but I knew that day that my mom took me to college that I wasn't coming back to Florence. I just knew it. And it's no disrespect or no love lost for Florence because I love my hometown, right? But I just knew I wasn't ever going to live there. There wasn't anything there for me. There wasn't any jobs there for me. There wasn't a woman there for me. So, other than family, with my parents being there and my family being there, I had no reason to come back. And subsequently, my brother would come to South Carolina State University 3 years later. And so, even he was there. So it wasn't like, I had to go back home. I mean, only thing that was back home was mom and dad and the rest of the family. But nonetheless, I just remember that day being dropped off. And I remember before I left home, I remember walking down the hall because I had my room on one end of the hallway. My brother Damon had his room on the other end of the hallway, and he was in his room chilling. And I was like, "All right, man." I was like, "I'm guess I'm out of here." And I paused, and he paused, and he got up off the bed. He gave me a hug, and we hugged each other tight, and we told each other we loved each other. And I think, I think we both were kind of fighting back tears. And I don't really know why, but I guess it was, it was a pivotal moment in my life that I knew that, I probably wasn't gonna live in that house again, and I didn't. And so fast forward some 30 plus years later, here we are with Brandon, and he went through his senior year, went through the summer, had a great summer, did everything, went everywhere, and here we are dropping him off at college. And it was interesting because he and I had conversations, and here again, folks, I don't know what the future's going to hold. He could go through 4 years of college and then come back home and live here. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. And the reason why I say that is because, and it's not because he's not welcome, it's just because the fact of I think when you have that level of independence for 4 or maybe 5 years, it's kind of hard to come back and live with, your parents. And some kids can't do it. So now I will say this much, they're more than welcome to live here because I know how hard it is to get on your feet and get your, your life going and everything. But I also understand too that, and I know my kids, if they've been on their own and coming and going as they please for 4 years, they're probably not going to want to be under dad's rule anymore. So, but here's the thing. We all have to move out at some time. At some point in time, we all have to leave the nest. And I think what's interesting is everybody's decision on how they left their home, whether it was to go to college or go to the military or just go into the workforce, everybody's situation is different. And I think what was interesting was as we grew up, we always said to ourselves, I can't wait to leave home. I can't wait to get out on my own. And more often than not, a lot of us got out on our own and realized this ain't really what it was or what we thought it was going to be, right? It's a little bit more difficult than we thought. But we enjoyed that independence. We enjoyed the idea of being out on our own and doing our thing. But I will say this much, it's different for each person. Some people never want to leave the nest. Some people are home people, and I get that. Like I remember I was I was interested in this young lady, and I think one of the reasons why I didn't really pursue anything with her, coming into college was like because she was like a homebody. Like she really enjoyed being at home. She enjoyed being in Florence. She enjoyed being up under her mom, and that was cool. But it didn't work for me. So like I'm a person who's going to be moving around. So subsequently we did not, have a relationship or what have you. But she's still a cool person. I mean, as far as I know, she's still live with her mama, I guess. I don't know. But I said all that to say this. I mean, everybody's situation is different. So, fast forward back to Brandon. It was interesting because like he and I had conversations leading up to this point. And, as many of you know, he's the third child. Our fourth child is our daughter, Skylar. So she has 3 older brothers and she's the remaining one in the house now. And she's a high school freshman now. So we got to do this all over again 4 years from now. And so it's interesting because I was telling my mom, how it went once we dropped him off. And the whole drop-off process is different for some people because like my homie, Eclectic, shout out to Eclectic. Eclectic and I did a podcast episode and he talked about how, Eclectic went to school in Louisiana. What's the name of the school he went to? Grambling. Yeah, that's it. So he went to Grambling and he's from Ohio. And he talked about how his parents literally drove like 16 hours from Ohio to Grambling, Louisiana, and basically just like left him. Like they just put his stuff in his room. Was like, all right, and took off, and they did not like check to see if he had his classes and everything or anything like that. They didn't check him in or nothing. They didn't help him set up his room, So every parent, every drop-off situation is different. My situation was different. I had football practice. So once I got to South Carolina State University, my mom didn't hang around that long. I mean, she helped me get my stuff in the dorm, but it was no setting up my room and putting up posters or nothing like that. She wasn't doing it. She didn't have time for all that. She had to go back to Florence, even though Florence was only an hour and a half away. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. If you want a podcast where culture, conversation, and life collide, where you get insightful commentary, engaging discussions, and a fresh perspective on everything, then you need to listen to the 12 Kyle podcast. Hosted by the one and only, yours truly, 12 Kyle, a voice that you know and trust. This podcast will bring you thought-provoking moments, compelling stories, and a whole lot of fun. Whether you're a first-time listener or just tuning in, each episode promises to be something new and exciting. So sit back, relax, join 12 Kyle, myself, and my guests as we break down the world around us and give you stories that you've never heard before, from nostalgic throwbacks to everything in between. The 12 Kyle podcast is a front row seat to this conversation. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of the 12 Kyle podcast, where the vibe is always real and the discussion is always worth your time.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free. Select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams. One coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
But I just noticed how like our process was different when we dropped off Dion, our oldest. We moved him in, helped him set up his room, got his bed and everything together, got stuff on the walls and stuff, and we kind of hung out, and then I think we stayed another day. It was like kind of wild, but he was the first. He's our first child, so that was different. And Cameron, when he went to college, he went to Southern University. So he was in Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge is 8 hours from Atlanta. So we had to drive down there. We had to stay down there. We had to, and Cameron came to Baton Rouge during the pandemic. So COVID was still going on. So he and his roommate were in the room. They had masks on, and, they were doing social distancing and all kind of stuff like that on the campus and stuff. So it was different. So, but we still moved him in, set him up, and we took him out to dinner and stuff. And then we stayed the night, and then we, drove back the next day. So when we dropped off Brandon, my mom made a comment. She said, well, you guys should be used to this by now. And I'm like, no, not really. I mean, because everybody's situation is different and each child is different. And so, Dion is one way, Cameron's one way, and Brandon's these are 3 different personalities. Great personalities, but 3 different personalities in and of itself. So his drop-off process, we moved him in and helped set up his room, met his roommate and stuff like that. And then, it was time to go. And what was interesting was like, I remember even before we even talked about leaving, because we moved him in we drove to the school or the city on Thursday, spent the night, and then we moved him in on Friday and then drove back to Atlanta. But I remember my wife was like, well, do you want to stay another day? And I'm like, stay another day for what? Like, what, what are we going to do Friday night? Just hang out? We're going to take him out to dinner? What are we? Like, no, that's not anything. So, but it was me, my wife, and Skylar. And so, we helped moved him in, and Dion, his older brother, was there, helping him move in and stuff. And so it was cool. And, but when it was time to go, it was the time to drop off. It was time for us to leave, And so for me, that process was, it wasn't emotional. I mean, I don't get too emotional about things, but I will say this much, and what made me think about this episode was the cover art that you see, Will Smith when Uncle Phil and them moved out on Fresh Prince. That's how I looked when I came back, when we drove back home. And I walked in his room, and like his room was like, there's nothing in his room. I mean, of course there's something in his room, but it's like nothing in his room. And more importantly, he's not in his room. And I'm so used to that little boy being in his room for 18 years, and not to see him in the room each day is different, because it's not like it's a weekend where he went off with his friends or he's out of town for a week for a convention or something like that. It's he's gone, for the semester. And of course we're going to see him. I'll make the trip to maybe I'll go up to their homecoming or something like that, but I'll see him, and we'll still FaceTime and we text and stuff like that. So it's not like he's not going without hearing from me or vice versa. But, when you let your kids go off to school, and what's interesting is I've seen this kind of play out over Facebook and Instagram in particular, seeing all of my friends and all of their kids going off to college, and that transition of letting them go, because, slowly but surely as parents, we have to let go a little bit. We have to kind of let them grow, let them soar. It's very scary because we know how we were at that age. Like I know how I was at 18. I was a wild boy at 18, but at the same time, I had a lot of fun, but I also enjoyed exploring the world. I also enjoyed learning more about Kyle and what he likes and what he didn't like, and those type of things. So, and I'm sure Brandon is finding those things out. I just told him, hey, be smart, make smart decisions, and stay focused, because ultimately the focus is to do what you're supposed to do in school. That's what you're there for. I mean, you're going to have fun. And he and I had plenty of conversations about it. I said, look, college is supposed to be fun. It is the most broke fun I've ever had in my life. Listen, if I could jump in a time machine and go back to South Carolina State University in the fall of 1991, I'd do it tomorrow. I'd take every dollar that I had right now, put it all on this floor, and I'd leave it right here. And I'd take $20 and I'd go back to 1991 in a heartbeat. That being said, I can't do it. So I enjoyed that time when I had it. I love the fact that I remember it all. I am happy that a lot of it wasn't documented, but at the same time, I understand that I had my time. And now it's his time, and he has to soar, and he has to enjoy his time where he is. And so, the process of dropping off, the process of letting a child or encouraging a child to move out, it's a different one for parents. And I know, any parents that's listening can totally identify with this, because we remember how it was when we were younger. And then, they always talk about what it would feel like to be an empty nester. But the reality is, I think a lot of us would love for our kids to still live with us. And I don't think I'm any different in that. I love having my kids around. I love, even now that they're older, I love them even more because they're young adults and I can talk to them as young men, and we're raising this young lady as well. And so I always want to be around them. So, but I also understand too, that they got to leave the nest. Again, I don't know if they'll ever be out of my pockets. I would love for it to get to the point where they did, but I don't know that that's ever going to happen. So I'm going to keep working and keep, providing for them and stuff like that, which I don't mind. But when you're transitioning to that period from high school to college, or college to the workforce, or high school to the workforce, it can be bumpy at times. It can be bumpy because, kids graduate from high school and they think that they know everything. Because trust me, I thought I knew everything once I graduated from Wilson High School in Florence, South Carolina. And I didn't know nothing, right? And I thought I knew everything once I graduated from South Carolina State University. And I didn't know nothing. And so it's a learning process. You're learning more and more about yourself and where you're going and what you like and what you don't like and who you are. And so I think for me, the drop-off process went pretty good. I would be lying if I didn't tell you that there was, some tears that were shed, not by me. But, like I told my mom, the process it's not the same for each child, and so the mother-son bond that my wife and Brandon have is a special bond. The father-daughter bond that Skylar and I have is a special bond. And I don't know what's going to happen 4 years from now when she has to make her selection for college. The running joke is that wherever she goes to school, we're going to move there. So hey, if she goes to UCLA, guess where we're moving? We're moving to California. If she goes to Howard, we're moving to DC. But no, I'm seriously, I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, don't hold me to that. I don't know how I may feel. I know letting that one go is going to be a little bit more difficult for me. So I'm, kind of slowly but surely trying to prepare myself. But I mean, in due time, I guess I'll just cross that bridge when I get to it. Ultimately, the thing I want to share with you parents more specifically is to my fellow friends and classmates who are letting their, little birds leave the nest, enjoy this time, enjoy that time, and enjoy watching them soar. The cool thing is that most of us have cell phones. Most of us can FaceTime or check in on them and stuff like that. It's not like it was when your parents dropped you off in the 90s, because we got dropped off and nobody knew anything that happened to us or what we did or where we went or who we were with. And thank God that nobody knew, because some of us would be totally embarrassed by what we did. Hopefully your kids and our kids are much, much better than we were. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every Thursday and every Sunday. Also, be sure to check out the Rap Soul podcast. That's my personal music podcast. It's the best music podcast that you've never heard. We talk about music and artists from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, hip hop, soul, and R&B. So check us out. Rap Soul podcast. You can find it wherever you're listening and watching in this podcast. We drop new episodes every Friday and every Monday. If you're on social media, hit us up. 12 Kyle podcast, Rap Soul podcast across the board on all the socials. If you'd like to contribute financially, hit us up. Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Also, we have merch. Click the description link below and click the merch link, and you can buy 12 Kyle podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Once again, I am your boy 12 Kyle. That's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. We will catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheer!
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.